Mike, what does this mean for the league?
I mean, I think first and foremost, this only happens if Clint wants it to happen. I mean, he's a tremendous player. He has a tremendous resume. He's going to be great for this league again. I think it says a lot about him and how he views and values MLS. So I think he ultimately wanted to come back and got the deal done to come back.
Mike, this is the second big money signing for DP signing for Seattle. What is that? What are the implications of that for the league, and to what extent is that possible? Because Seattle draws 40,000 fans a game.
I think they just keep raising the bar with two, as you said, two very big, high profile, highly compensated designated players, and I think it raises the bar for the rest of the league.
What was the impact of Clint leaving here the first time? And you're still feeling that impact now.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I think if you look back to 2006 when he was sold, he was in the third year of his deal. He made it very clear at the time that he had aspirations and dreams to play in Europe, and both the Revs and the league felt that at the time the offer was substantial enough to move him prior to the end of his contract, to which we did, and that's obviously the reason why we didn't have right of first refusal when he came back into the league this time.
Is the Revs looking to close a deal with a new player before the closing date?
We are. We are looking to add before Thursday, but there's nothing to announce yet, and there's a good chance that something may happen, but it's not done.
Will be a DP player?
I'm not comfortable commenting on that at this point.
Were you surprised that Clint came back before so soon?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it was a little surprising. It seemed like it happened relatively quickly, and not having been on the insides of the kind of the negotiations with the league in Seattle and not knowing, but I think they did a very commendable job of keeping a lid on this till the last possible minute.
Does this put more pressure on general managers across the league to make similar types of moves?
Everyone would love to have Clint Dempsey, but there's not a lot of Clint Dempseys out there. So I think because it's Clint, because it's a returning U.S. national team player, and not just any player. I mean, Clint's arguably one of, if not the top player right now for the U.S. national team. So I think this just makes a big statement, like I said earlier, of what he thinks about the league and wanting to return. But it's not easy to get Clint Dempsey, but for sure everyone would love to have him.
What does it say to other European players, other EPL players?
That's an interesting question. I think the signings of probably Henry and Beckham, I don't want to say carry more weight, but it's different when it's an international player coming to MLS, I think, than when it's an American player returning to MLS. So, but I do think at 30 years old, in his prime, one of the top players in the U.S. right now to return a year before a World Cup year, I think says an awful lot.
Do you think this sets a precedent at all for young American players that have those aspirations to go to Europe, that maybe they think twice, they realize that MLS is growing and it's a strong league?
I'd like to think so. But everyone's been pretty open at the league level about wanting to make this one of the top leagues by 2020 or 2022, and I still think you're always going to have young American players to want to play in the best and the top leagues in the world, and Clint just did that. And we're not there yet, right? So, as a player, you always want to test yourself and push yourself and, play in MLS, play for the national team. So I think you'll still have that because we're not the Premier League. We're not La Liga yet. We're not Serie A. And so I think until we get to that point, I think you're always going to want to have guys try to push themselves and play at the highest level they can.
With expansion on the horizon, how important is it that teams start to bring in some big names and not just one guy here, one guy there, but to really have a group of big time?
I think we're going to need to. I mean, I don't want to say that just say that lightly, but if, the commissioner said last week that they want to get to 24 teams, and you're not going to be able to. That's not going to all come from the academy. It's not going to all come from domestic players. So you're going to have international players, and I think some teams for sure, whatever expansion teams or cities have, I think you're going to see some more higher profile players come into the league over the next 5-10 years for sure.
Can you just explain the wider impact of Clint leaving the first time on the club, specifically with what it pertains to the academy and the influence influence that his move had on that the development of that over the years?
In terms of just our academy in general?
Yeah, no,
Or-
in terms of the fact that Clint's move was able to provide some resources for the academy and.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Yeah, without question. I mean, everyone knows that when a player is sold and a team gets a portion of a transfer fee, it's to be reinvested into the product in a lot of different ways, and that kind of enabled us to kind of get our academy program off the ground and running. And I mean, as you all know, I think it's paid huge dividends, and we expect our program to even get better over the next few years, and to be able to have a Diego and a Scott Caldwell. I don't want to attribute to it exactly. I'm not saying we wouldn't have done it otherwise, but the fact that we were able to fully fund the program for our kids and have these guys now come through and play for our first team is tremendous. And I think we've said it and we've been public about it. We hope over the next few years we're going to be able to add players. I don't think we're never going to be in a situation or want to be in a situation where we're signing guys just to sign guys, to say it's a numbers game and we want to sign 5 or 6 homegrown guys, because I think there'll probably be situations where we have a year or two where there's a Scott or a Diego that makes sense, and we only want to sign guys that we think are going to make sense and impact the first team. And we think we've had 2 guys so far that have done that.
From what you've seen, how has Clint grown since he left here? How has he changed as a player?
Well, he's gotten better for sure, and he was good when he was here. So I don't want to say he wasn't good when he was here, but he was very good when he was here. But then to go and play in the Premier League, and not just play, but have success in the Premier League, is not that easy to do. And he scored goals in both clubs that he was at. And I think when you have success like that, without question, your confidence grows. And I think you've seen that over the last 5, 6, 7 years, that he's become a better player. His confidence has gotten better. He's carried that over to the national team, and without question, he's one of the elite players we have right now in the U.S.
Can this almost provide maybe a template that, a young guy here plays a couple years here, goes to Europe, gets a little experience, and then comes back?
I think that's a very good point, because I think you probably can give examples of a couple different scenarios, right? Of players that want to go to Europe right out of the gate, and then you have players that have, like a Michael Bradley, a Timmy Howard, a Clint Dempsey, that have played in MLS, gotten some experience, and then gone to Europe and have done very, very well, and now coming back. So, it remains to be seen on some of the other guys I just mentioned, but I think there's a lot to that they've gotten experience here in the U.S., playing game after game, season after season, and then have been able to apply that in a different league.
Any other questions, guys?
You said MLS isn't where Little League is and EPL is, but does Dempsey signing bring it closer to that level?
Listen, anytime something like this happens, I think we get closer to that level, but we still have a ways to go.
Of course.
We still have a ways to go. But for Clint to come back in his prime, yes, we'll certainly going to make Seattle a better team.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome. No problem.